You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
Dear friends, we're here on a solemn day. The clouds are dark. The cemetery is the last place we want to be, and yet we stand here to bury a friend, to bury someone who's been with us for years and years. Some of us have been with them our whole lives, and yet we find that now we must, sadly, we must say goodbye. Solemn friends, we're here to bury Star Wars. Star Wars had a great run. 1977 all the way to 2017, when finally, due to old age, bad decisions, repetition, outdated storylines, somber films, lackluster characters. Many, many things have led to this moment. And as we stand graveside, staring at a very large casket, we say goodbye to an institution, to a film series, a lifestyle that has been with me since 1977. It's with a heavy heart. We're joined by Chewbacca's here. It's so great that he took time out to be here. R2-D2's here. And it's no coincidence that Peter Mayhew and Kenny Baker have both passed on, and yet they are here today to witness the passing of Star Wars. I would ask now that we all file by the coffin, dropping an action figure onto the coffin, and we will say goodbye to Star Wars. Well, you knew it was going to happen, right? We knew that. It's weird to think, like, younger people won't understand this, but we've already watched Star Wars die once. It did. It died. It's okay. In 1983, Return of the Jedi was released, and the entire Star Wars saga was wrapped up. All the storylines were completed. It left no room for a sequel. And it was allowed to die. And I think I've talked about this on the show before, but in 1979, Star Wars was re-released, and if you stayed past the credits, you got a trailer for The Empire Strikes Back. And in 1982, The Empire Strikes Back was re-released, and if you stayed through the credits, you were rewarded with a trailer for Return of the Jedi. It was one of the greatest moments of my life. Well, when Star Wars Return of the Jedi was re-released in theaters in 1985, just prior to its home video release, I stayed till the credits were over, and nothing happened. So the 3-year cycle of what should have been a new Star Wars film in 1986 was not to be. George Lucas had decided that was it. all we got was we got 2 Ewok movies, which most Star Wars people don't even know about them. We got the Ewok Adventure and Ewok's Caravan of Courage. They're both pretty lame. Lucas had dipped his toe in with the Star Wars Holiday Special and got completely burnt. These are not nearly as bad as that. We got the Star Wars Droids cartoon, the Ewoks cartoon. They weren't too bad, but they're made for little children. And with the demise of the Kenner toy line, in 1985, we were in the final stages of the Power of the Force line, arguably some of the best figures that Kenner had ever put out. And the Droids A-Wing fighter, the Droids toy line, the Ewoks toy line. But by 1987, I went to the Star Wars 10th Anniversary Convention. At that point, it's over. There's nothing new. There's no new merchandise. Spaceballs was coming out, so the parody was intact as far as Star Wars is now a full genre. It's got its own Mel Brooks parody movie. We're done. The only people who got toys after that was Brazil. Glasslight Company was the Kenner subsidiary in Brazil. They put out a line of figures, including the very rare Vlix, which is the rarest figure in the entire line. But here's the thing. In 1989, I was almost ready to turn 18. I was 17. I was on vacation up north, and I went into a convenience store. And it was one of those places where, like an AM PM, but in the middle of nowhere. And they sell trucker hats and mud flaps for your truck. And on a spinning reel, there was a whole peg of Star Wars figures. And it was all the same figure. It was Princess Leia in indoor poncho, but it was the Power of the Force version with the coin. Now, by 1989, I was heavily into Back to the Future. I had put Star Wars to bed. But I still had all of my Star Wars toys in a closet in the garage. And I knew that they would someday be quite valuable. So I bought all of those Star Wars figures at that convenience store in Marysville, California. And that was the last original first run Star Wars purchase I ever made. And after that, Star Wars was allowed to die. It had already been dead for a few years. Kenner pitched a whole new toy line to Lucasfilm, and Lucas turned it down. No, we're done with that. We're going to move on. ILM was working on effects for dozens of movies. They were also in the infancy of creating what would eventually become Pixar. So they were busy guys. And Star Wars was not a thing. And this is a time, the 1980s were a time when it seems so alien now, but franchises were allowed to run their course and die. And it was okay. And nobody felt like they were missing out on the big prize. Because what have we seen lately? Nothing but big corporations beating these dead horses beyond recognition. And a few of them they're gonna last. Marvel's gonna last. But look at DC, what a mess. And look at Star Wars, what a bigger mess. But Star Wars as a franchise was allowed to die. There was a brief resurgence when Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire book trilogy came out, because this is what we had wanted all along. These were sequels that took place after Return of the Jedi that continued the story of Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia, Star Wars, R2-D2, C-3PO, yada, 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 right? Even Lando Calrissian showed up, and fantastic. There's a sequence where Lando is on a planet that is too close to the sun. So the city that he governs is on the top of AT-AT walkers that are constantly outrunning the sun's rays to stay in the shadows. Like, brilliant. Timothy Zahn stuff is brilliant. And I remember reading it thinking, this is the only worthy Star Wars sequel we're ever going to get. Because at that point, Marvel Comics had run its course, and they were terrible, with some bright spots, but mostly forgettable. But the Zahn trilogy proved Star Wars was a sleeping giant. So what happened was they turned on the book portion of it. You know, they had 1 million authors sign on to write 1 million books set in the Star Wars universe. And I read almost all of them. Some were good, some were schlock, some deserved to be put in the incinerator, and some deserved to be made into movies. And then in 1995, Kenner took a risk, and they brought Star Wars toys back, and they didn't think anyone was going to care, or they were really hesitant to boast about these. It was a small line, just a few figures, and land speeder, and then they quickly added the TIE Fighter and the X-Wing. Well, they flew off the shelves because they were right in the sweet spot of all the kids who had grown up on Star Wars, my generation, suddenly now had jobs and disposable income. And we bought everything that Kenner put out. And then Kenner was quickly, at that point, swallowed by Hasbro. And the toys became Hasbro toys. And they enjoyed an incredible run up until the release of the prequels, 1999's Phantom Menace. And then, you know, it's hard to describe today what kind of marketing Phantom Menace got. Like, you simply couldn't escape Phantom Menace. It was the biggest thing ever. Followed on 2002 by Attack of the Clones, 2005, Revenge of the Sith, and then Star Wars dies again. The second death of Star Wars. Lucas had done his second trilogy. He proved his point of he could do it his way, on his terms, telling the story he wanted to tell, whether the fans liked it or not. Each one was a massive box office hit. And the toys, again spread out over 3 years, was Lucas's cycle. 99, 2002, 2005. Now, the toy line, having proved itself viable, has been going ever since. It's never waned. There have been times where there's a dry spell. But if you were a Star Wars fan and you wanted to buy a Star Wars action figure, you could go to the store and buy a Star Wars action figure. And then something happened. Star Wars went asleep for a while. And then Lucas, he brought up the Clone Wars cartoon. They had a Clone Wars cartoon movie, which I actually saw in a theater. I'm ashamed of that. And then you could tell, you know, I'm projecting here, but you could tell that Lucas's heart just wasn't in it. And Star Wars was not his thing anymore. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Lucas set out to become an experimental filmmaker. You know, in 1974, 75, when he was working on the final draft of what would become Star Wars 1977, I don't think he had any clue, certainly he didn't, that this would become the main focus of the rest of his life. Think about what you were doing in your early 30s. Would you want something at that point to become the main focus of every waking moment until you die? That's why when it came time to do the next trilogy, I've said this before, he could have done Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Millennium Falcon. He could have. That would have been easy. Instead, he pushed himself. He made the prequels. Now, I'm not a fan of the prequels, but I am a fan of people doing what they want and their vision showing up on the screen, whether it fails or not. There have been some glorious failures in film. John Carter is one of them. You know, there are a lot of movies that are just massive. Cloud Atlas, you know, that for some reason somebody had the drive to make this film, and maybe you didn't like it, maybe you hated it, but somebody got up every day for years and put it together, and you have to applaud that. So that's what Lucas did. He put his vision up on the screen. He didn't compromise, and he did it his way. And then one day he got up and said, I could sell Star Wars to the Walt Disney Company and ride off into the sunset. So he did. He called Bob Iger up and said, I think Star Wars might be for sale. And Bob Iger, having purchased Marvel and Pixar and a million other smaller companies that most of us aren't even aware of, he probably hung up the phone and said, I can't effing believe it. The thing that should never have been for sale is for sale. You know, the Smithsonian is having a tag sale, and everything's up for grabs. Because isn't that what Star Wars is? An American institution? A worldwide phenomenon? And suddenly, what should be priceless actually has a price tag? So, Lucas sells Star Wars to Disney. And we knew it was coming. You could just sort of sense it after the huge successes that Disney had with Pixar and Marvel, folding them in. You know, I'd always said we wouldn't get a decent Star Wars movie until George Lucas passed away. Or he somehow was no longer involved. And this is what has happened. Think about what it takes to walk away from everything. Forget the money. Lucas already had enough money to spend every day of his life and never run out. So it wasn't about the money. It was about walking away from the thing you have worked on since 1977. That takes balls of steel, folks. And yet he did. He had seller's remorse afterwards, obviously, when he compared Disney to white slavers. But he's watching these creations of his suddenly now have a Disney stamp on them, you know? That's got to be weird. That's got to be so alien. And yet, it was inevitable, wasn't it? Whether it happened during Lucas's lifetime or after, some corporation was going to get their hands on Star Wars. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but Star Wars was financed by 20th Century Fox. And Lucas maintained control of the film and final cut by foregoing any kind of pay for it. He took points in it, and Fox thought, well, if the movie bombs, we won't even have to pay this guy. They had no faith in the movie. They thought Lucas was crazy. So Lucas retained all rights. So The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, though they are distributed by 20th Century Fox, they're independent movies. They're made exactly the way George Lucas wanted them to be made. The prequels, too. Those are 5 of the most expensive, if not the most expensive, independent films ever made. That's a guy doing it his way, you know? And I've done another episode where I defended George Lucas. That's not what we're doing here. George did what he wanted, and I applaud him for that, and he walked off. And the fans, us, who have made Star Wars our lifestyle since we were children, are now watching that creation, that imagination, that spark slowly fade out in favor of cheap movies, badly written standalone films, unnecessary, like really unnecessary prequels, and a rebooted quote-unquote new trilogy that seems to be just a rehash of everything we've already seen. And I'm a big Lawrence Kasdan fan. This is the guy who wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark, Silverado, I Love You to Death, French Kiss. Kasdan, Body Heat. Kasdan's a genius. But he's always had a bug up his ass. If you read The Making of Return of the Jedi, he simply did not understand why Han Solo was allowed to survive Return of the Jedi. Because he kept telling Lucas, somebody has to pay the sacrifice. Somebody has to die. And Lucas kept insisting, we're going to make it a happy ending. We're going to make sure everybody makes it out. But Kasdan fought him on it. And so Kasdan, who did the final pass, I think, on Force Awakens, finally got to kill Han Solo. Isn't that great? Finally got to kill Han Solo. So he got what he wanted. It only took 3 decades later. But that's okay. You know, that's the movie you want to make, that's the movie you make. But this is where me, original fan from 1977, guy who named his kid Luke Skywalker, this is where I part ways. Because Star Wars is dead. And that makes me so sad. But what else can you say? The Force Awakens was a big, lumbering hulk of a movie designed to hit all of the nostalgia buttons in all the right ways, and yet I just felt this is just fan service to me. They're just putting in things that I recognize so I can perk up while they retell the tale of A New Hope with a scrappy young person on a desert planet who dreams of joining the rebellion. And the question is, why is there a rebellion? Last time we watched, the Emperor had been thrown down a shaft and Death Star Part 2 had been blown to smithereens. And all across the galaxy, the statues of Palpatine were being toppled. How did they rise to power? There's your story. Well, where's that story? But we're just supposed to accept that everything now has been reset? Oh, the bad guys are in power again. Oh, how'd they do that? Oh, we don't know. Are you going to tell us? No. Well, where's Luke Skywalker? Well, he's missing. He'll be in the last 30 seconds of the movie. Oh, cool. What? Well, we had problem writing the movie, and every time Luke appears, he's so powerful, nothing can defeat him. Well, then maybe you have to come up with a better villain? Because in good dramatic stories, the villain is always more powerful than the hero. That's why when the hero rises up and fights back and ultimately wins, it feels so satisfying. I didn't set these rules down. These rules were set down thousands of years ago by the first storytellers ever. All you have to do is pick up Joseph Campbell's The Power of Myth. Everything you need to know is right in there. Let's not try to reinvent the wheel by rehashing what we've already seen. It's lazy. They have X-Wings and TIE Fighter, but they've got red splotches on them. Oh, then they're different. Right. Well, hey, Force Awakens was lackluster, but the next one, Rogue One, that's going to be great because they don't have to do any of that Skywalker stuff. They can just tell a really cool war movie in the midst of Star Wars. Right? Yeah. And then I went and saw that. It was even worse. Because they're just lazy storytellers. Because it's a big corporate machine. They're not independent movies anymore. So they're not taking any risks. The only risk Rogue One took was killing everybody at the end. But we knew that kind of had to happen. Otherwise, we might have seen those characters in other movies. If you're going to write a prequel, the end of it has to match up to the movie that you're prequeling. And when Darth Vader fought Obi-Wan Kenobi on the Death Star, he didn't swing his lightsaber like he did at the end of Rogue One. He wasn't that agile and angry. He was more of a elder statesman, pulling his sword one last time for one last round with the old guy, right? It makes me irritated. I'm just irritated. I truly hated Rogue One. I was like, at this point, Star Wars is dead because not only are the movies terrible, but the whole reason they bought Star Wars to sell toys, they're not even selling toys. You can't even go to the store and buy the toys that you want of the characters in the movie. We're coming up on 2 years since the release of Force Awakens, and there has not been a elder Luke Skywalker figure at retail to buy. only at Comic-Con. Like, that's ridiculous. That's not how Star Wars is. And what I mean by that is, I have been raised up and trained a certain way with Star Wars. And now they're trying to change it all, and it seems like they're changing it for the worse, not the better. I simply don't understand that. They came out with an anniversary line this year, 40th anniversary since, of Star Wars. So 40 years since the movie was released. And they took a bunch of these really detailed 6-inch figures and put them on replicas of the packaging that they had in 1978 when the Star Wars toy line was launched. And they were $20 each, and they were pretty cool. And the Darth Vader one came in a box set with a little stand that looked just like the one that you mailed away for. So it was a really nice nod to the fans who've waited 40 years for some kind of celebration, right? Well, here's the thing. They only shipped these toys once or twice. So if you didn't buy them the moment you saw them, you didn't get a second chance. And some of the figures only shipped in certain areas, or they never shipped. I've never seen a Tusken Raider. I've never seen a Han Solo. These were gone the minute they were put on the shelves. And when Star Wars came out, when the toys came out in 1978, they kept upping the ante as far as how many to collect. And it was so great to flip to the back of the card and see exactly how many figures you were missing, which they don't do anymore. But you had 3 years to collect them before they switched over to the Empire. 2 years since The Empire Strikes Back. And then 3 years until Jedi. And they kept shipping them and shipping them and shipping them. If you missed out on Farm Boy Luke, odds are the next time you went to the store, you could find a Tatooine Luke. Well, if I wanted to put this set together, now I have to go to eBay because they're already gone. And I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, Disney, I thought the whole point was to sell merchandise. I want to buy your merchandise. You are not giving me the opportunity to buy the merchandise. And it's not a limited thing. It's not like I'm saying, darn these limited editions, because if you said limited edition, I get it. You snooze, you lose. I'm a big fan of that. The early bird gets the worm. These are standard issue toys that Target and Walmart are supposed to stock perennially, and they're not even there. There's zero. You'll be lucky to find one. If I went to 5 Targets today, I might find one Death Star Commander. And if I wanted Princess Leia, I could go to GameStop, but she's like $3 more. But you see where there's a mixed signal there. And why I say Star Wars is dead. Because if you bought it to sell me stuff, you're not selling me any stuff. Hasbro's offerings of The Force Awakens and Rogue One are some of the weakest the Star Wars line has ever seen in 40 years. And I'm counting droids, I'm counting Ewoks, I'm counting Clone Wars, everything. It's just, you go to the store and you cannot believe what crud is on the shelf. And even worse, they're all on clearance. Nobody wants it. I'm not alone. Nobody wants this crap. Everybody's taking a pass. Target just redid their toy aisle for Star Wars and added a permanent clearance section. That's unheard of, man. Star Wars toys almost never go on clearance. I saw a Star Wars figure yesterday at the 99-cent store. It was $3.99 because they have a little pricing thing now. But it was Constable Zuvio from The Force Awakens, $3.99. Or if I want to go to Target right now, I can get virtually any character from Rogue One for $2.38. That's an embarrassment. And that's not because they shipped too many. It's because the things that they shipped, nobody wanted. There's the difference. And that's a startling difference. Because Star Wars, since 1978, has been the gold standard for boys' toys. It's been textbooked. This is how you do it. This is how you get kids to buy into a brand, to have allegiance to a brand, to shun everything else but that brand, to take that brand even further to bed sheets, coffee mugs, toothbrushes, clothing, shoes, food products. Star Wars is everything. And right now, nobody cares. How did that happen? Darth Vader is arguably the most recognizable movie villain of all time. And they got Darth Vader stuff on the aisle that nobody wants. That's unbelievable. So, why did this happen? What are the reasons? I think the reasons are too many movies too soon, no time to let them marinate in the consciousness. We're coming up on December, another Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi, and that movie's going to have 2 months in the theater before it's gone. Then it'll be out on Blu-ray in April, and then in May, the Han Solo prequel comes out. Like, that's... what the hell? Are they terrified? Is Disney terrified that people may forget about Star Wars? Because that's not going to happen. They're building the Star Wars land at Disneyland. It's not going anywhere. And yet, there seems to be an air of desperation in Lucasfilm right now. As if Kathleen Kennedy and Lawrence Kasdan are adrift. Like, they don't know what they're doing. I know that they've got all these movies lined up, but they just fired the original directors of the Han Solo movie, brought in Ron Howard to finish it. That's never happened. Ever. What? What does that mean? Are we going to get to see both cuts? Never. That would be admitting to a mistake. But here's the thing. I'm proclaiming Star Wars dead. And its last hope is The Last Jedi. If The Last Jedi is phenomenal, I'll eat my words. I'm not too proud. I like Luke Skywalker. But everything I read is, it was not a fun shoot. The things they do to Luke are terrible. There's a little creature in the film called a Porg, which looks to be like movie marketing worse than the Ewoks. Like, it looks like a Furby in the movie. And there are going to be a lot of them, and you're going to want to adopt one, or, I don't even know. What the hell? I don't know. And then the final nail in the coffin is going to be that Han Solo movie. If that Han Solo movie is good, I'll eat the ears off of Gundark. Proudly. But what are the chances? Is there a Han Solo prequel story that we want to see? No. Everything you need to know about Han Solo is summed up in the cantina scene when we first meet him. Right? He's a smuggler. He's a scoundrel. He sets up this deal with Luke and Ben because Han's got a debt. Greedo shows up. He outwits Greedo. He shoots first in cold blood and throws the guy a coin. Sorry about the mess. That is screenwriting 101. The minute that scene ends, the second that it ends, we know everything we need to know about that character. And a 2-hour prequel movie showing how he got his boots and where he buys his pants and how him and Chewie met and how he won the Falcon from Lando. This is all nonsense. This is stuff that we don't care about. The studio thinks we do. Like, they gotta just reboot. Like, we care, and we don't. Some things you can just leave alone. You don't need to make a Han Solo prequel movie. This is a complete waste of time. And are they gearing up to show us the trailer for that movie in front of Last Jedi? Like, is that the conceit? Here's the next Star Wars movie you're going to see. Are you effing kidding me? The Star Wars movies are backed up, one on top of each other, like planes at LAX, that you got to advertise the next one while I'm watching the current one, F you, Disney. It makes my head spin, man. It makes my head spin. And why is Galaxy's Edge, because that's the name of the Star Wars land, Galaxy's Edge, why is it a new planet? Oh, I know. Because if they made Mos Eisley or Yavin or Echo Base, we would all know everything they got wrong. Because we know it so well, because it's ingrained in our consciousness. Because as kids, we wanted to be there in the worst way. We wanted to jump into the screen and be at the cantina. You know? Or helm the ion cannon. Right? And when they get it wrong, we'll be pissed off. So guess what? It's a whole new planet. Because you can't screw up that which you do not know. It's just irritating beyond belief. It's a new planet. Oh, is it one in the movie? No, it's a new planet. So it's not even in Force Awakens. No. It's a movie, it's a planet you've never been to. Well, that's convenient. So then there's no detail you have to make sure you get. You know, at least Universal made Hogwarts and Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley. Things that we had seen in the movie. So when you walk in, you're like, I am in the freaking movie. The closest we're going to get to that is the Millennium Falcon ride. And even that they've changed. You're no longer going to walk up the gantry plank and take the helm. You're going to enter from the back. So they can cleverly hide all 12 or whatever it is cockpits. Oh, but here's the thing. What else? What other conclusion can we reach? This was inevitable. The way society's going, nothing is sacred. Nobody cares about anything. Everything's disposable. Phone breaks, get a new one. Shoes fall apart, you don't repair them, you get a new one. Disposable lighters. Single-use toothpicks. Q-tips in plastic cellophane, right? From Fight Club. We're just at a point in society where we're too busy looking at our fidget spinners to care about the big picture. You know? The mainstream media dangles a shiny object in front of our face for 10 seconds, and we don't even think about other things. And boy, does that sound cynical. Yeah, it does. Memes have replaced conversation. You go on social media, somebody asks a question, and people just post memes. I have no opinion except this meme. Oh. So we're spiraling back into hieroglyphics of the Egyptian age, where your entire social media wall is a series of pictograms that somehow get across the point that I'm hungry, tired, and looking for love or something, right? Doesn't that make you sad? You ever seen Back to School where Sam Kinison says, I look at history and I hold it sacred. The way a farmer looks at the ground and holds it sacred. Well, I hold the English language sacred. And I'll never write the letter R for the word A-R-E or the letter U for Y-O-U. I just don't roll that way. Life's too important for shortcuts like that. Language is too important. Yeah, I laugh at memes. They're funny. But I see people using them more often and more often now instead of conversation. So why shouldn't our movies and our entertainment reflect the same kind of lackadaisical, slow, shortcutty, shorthand nonsense? Who needs big ideas anymore? Right? No, that's the old people. I don't want to think. I want to go to the movies, man, and I want to turn my brain off. Really? I don't. Turn your brain off? Like you don't care if it's good or not as long as there's an explosion and the red and blue color, the orange and blue colors are brightly lit? I want more than that. I don't want secret-coded storytelling where Kylo Ren is revealed to be Han and Leia's kid, and we're never told how he fell to the dark side. There's a quick couple of shots in the movie, but no story. Nobody sits down and goes, Kylo Ren, let me tell you about Kylo Ren. He started out as that, and then he killed everybody, and I was there, and he let me live because I have this scar. Now, that would have been, like, right? That's called freaking storytelling. Because in Star Wars, when Ben Kenobi hands Luke Skywalker his father's lightsaber, the story that he tells is true, because at that point in the script, Anakin and Darth Vader are two different people. Anakin was a good friend and the best star pilot in the galaxy. You knew my father? You fought with him in the Clone Wars? Yeah. And I've been saving this lightsaber for you for the last 20 years. Instead, the new one's like, well, we'll just have some scenes that kind of make sense and let the audience fill in the gaps, and if 2 movies down the line it doesn't make sense, we'll just retcon it. Because, at the end of Force Awakens, Rey slashes Kylo Ren with her lightsaber across his face. And in the new movie, they changed the scar. And I know, like, well, Jeff, that's nitpicking. No, listen, holding you to the story that you're telling is not nitpicking. I didn't start this fight. I didn't slash Kylo Ren in the face. You did. So if you did, then he kind of has to have the same scar in the next movie. And if he doesn't, there needs to be a line of dialogue where he says, well, I saw the Dr. Bot, and Dr. Bot fixed me up. Oh, okay. But they won't. Because they figure we don't care. Because they figure there'll be a meme about it, how the scar's in the wrong place, and all the little Star Wars nerds got their panties in a bunch, and we're the problem. I'm the problem? Oh, I'm the problem. Not lazy storytelling or fake continuity. That's not the problem. You see why I'm proclaiming Star Wars dead? Because you're not even allowed to complain anymore. The ones who complain are told, sit down, you're being nitpicky. Like if I got up at Comic-Con and said, excuse me, I have a question. Yeah, at the end of Star Wars Force Awakens, Kylo Ren gets slashed with his lightsaber, but in the new movie, the scab and the scar are in the wrong place. Do you live in your parents' basement? That's not an answer to the question. Do you have a girlfriend? Have you ever kissed a girl? So you're not going to answer the question. So making this movie was great. We worked hard every day and had a lot of laughs. So you're not going to answer the question, sir? No. Because you're the problem for bringing it up. Oh, see how it got turned on me. I'm the a-hole. When did that happen? When did wanting to question things make you the a-hole? Because I guess I've been the a-hole my whole life. You know? Lazy storytelling. Are you kidding me? You're joking, right? Because I'm the guy that said, when Ben Kenobi handed Luke Skywalker Anakin's lightsaber, he just turned it on and he moved it around. Wow, golly gee. And then when that same lightsaber was handed to Rey, she touched it and it was like it was coated with LSD. Because it made her time travel and have memories of stuff she wasn't even around for and visions. And you're like, well, when did this happen? Well, it just does. How about a line of dialogue with, hey, how about Maz Butt Eyes, whatever her name is, go, I call her Maud. How come B. Arthur Maud doesn't go, or is it Estelle Getty? How come Estelle Getty doesn't go, the Force has changed. It's becoming more powerful. The objects that are infused with the Force are now keeping those memories to keep the Force alive. Imagine a line like that. Imagine she stares right at Rey and she goes, with Luke Skywalker gone and the Jedi's all but extinct, the things that they used, the tools that they used, they're soaking in their own history, lest it be forgotten. Oh my God! I would have been amazed, but they just don't do it. And when you bring it up, they go, Jeff, it's just a movie. Turn your brain off. Thank you. I'll turn my brain off. Thanks. Maybe I can think of a meme for turning my brain off. Right? I hate it. I hate that we're at this point where we're supposed to just blindly love everything, never question. Never Never have your hand up. Having your hand up now is a sign that you're the a-hole. Damn it. We could have gone to recess class if Jeff hadn't had so many questions. I have another question. Oh, everyone point at Jeff. He's the a-hole. But you see what I'm saying, right? And then we're at a point now where some of the stuff related to Star Wars is not even true. And yet it's accepted as fact. What am I talking about? I'm talking about this stupid notion that in the original Star Wars trilogy, the stormtroopers are bad shots. I don't understand this. I wonder if the people who perpetuate it and buy the t-shirts, the t-shirts of the stormtroopers all in white that says, stormtroopers just getting back from their first paintball rally. Because, they didn't hit anything, Okay, let's go through it, shall we? We first meet the stormtroopers when Darth Vader's Star Destroyer swallows up the Rebel blockade runner, and the stormtroopers burn the door open and kill everyone. They kill everyone on the blockade runner that is in their way. All of the Rebel fleet soldiers die. They are all shot by the crack shots that are the Empire. So, okay, the next time we see any type of stormtrooper activity, the stormtroopers have attacked a sandcrawler. They have killed every single Jawa trying to get to the ones who sold R2 and 3PO to the Owens. The stormtroopers are so good shots that not only do they disable a sandcrawler with a few shots, but then kill every Jawa and then have the wherewithal to make it look like the Sand People did it by leaving gaffy sticks around, the weapons that the Tusken Raiders use. The next time we see the stormtroopers, they're blasting at the Falcon, which is just too fast for them to get. They do hit it. Watch the movie. Right? So then the film shifts. And I don't know if you've watched a lot of documentaries about Star Wars. I have. Lucas's idea for the movie is that we start out, after the blockade runner sequence, the rest of the movie is organic for a while. We're on Tatooine. There's sand. There's sun. Right? There's organisms. There's creatures. And then we move into the city where there's even more of that. The cantina is littered with breathing creatures and monsters. And then when they get into the spaceship, it becomes more sterile. And it gets even worse when they get on the Death Star. And the Death Star is completely metal with robots everywhere and very, very little humanity. All of the soldiers are covered up in masks. We rarely see the Death Star commanders. The TIE fighter pilots are in double masks, right? Darth Vader wears a mask. All of the humanity has been stripped from the film. And the reason we know who the good guys are is that the Yavin base is overgrown with grass and weeds and life, vines, because this is about man overthrowing the machines that threaten to do him in. That's what Star Wars is. That's why Darth Vader is more machine than man now, because when he gets taken out, it is humanity taking back the galaxy from robots and technology and the dependence on technology. The whole Star Wars arc is too much technology kills you. And look at where we are now. So the next time we see the stormtroopers in action is on the Death Star. And guess what? They can't hit anything. Luke and Leia are swinging across and they can't hit them. Han chases after them and hits a dead end, and they chase back and they can't hit him. Then our heroes watch Ben die. They get on the Falcon, they take off, and a small handful of TIE fighters come out to get them, and each one of them is destroyed. Those men were sent on kamikaze death missions. Han Solo says, "Not a bad bit of rescuing." And what does Leia say? "They let us go." So once Princess Leia is out of her cell, once Tarkin realizes that somebody from the rebellion is there to rescue Princess Leia and take her out of the Death Star to the hidden rebel base, he knows what the plan is. The plan is they put a tracking device aboard the Falcon and they just wait. but they have to make it look believable. There has to be some resistance, because all Tarkin had to do was say, let him go. And our heroes would have found an empty passageway all the way to the Falcon after they realize Ben has turned the tractor beam off. And even that, Tarkin would have turned it off himself. But it has to look believable, because if it looks like it's a setup, Leia doesn't realize till too late that it's a setup. She doesn't realize it till they're on the Falcon and they're heading towards a rebel base, and by then it's too late. Because a rebel leader worth her salt, and we know Leia is, would have just gone somewhere else. She would have landed on Podunk Planet 2, and she would have then contacted the rebellion and said, look, I can't get to you, because if I go there, the Death Star will know where you are. But there wasn't time for that. They go straight to Yavin. They get the plans out of R2. They find a weakness. They mount their attack. And I don't know if you guys realize this, but when Luke blows the Death Star up, the Imperial gunner aboard the Death Star is about 6 or 5 seconds away from blowing Yavin up and everybody dying. We could have had a double kill there, where Luke destroys the Death Star and the Death Star destroys Yavin and everybody dies. Right? So the stormtroopers let them go because they want to find out where the rebel base is. That's what Tarkin's been doing the whole movie. That's his whole story arc. That's his whole story arc, is where's the rebel base? When we finally have the battle of the Death Star, the rebels get their ass kicked. The only one left is Luke, Wedge, and the Falcon, which wasn't part of the initial attack run. Everybody else is dead. Everybody else who got into a Y-Wing or an X-Wing died. So this idea that the stormtroopers are bad shots, I just don't get. Look at Empire Strikes Back. The first battle of Empire Strikes Back is the Hoth takeover of Echo Base. And the Imperials destroy everything. And the bad guys shoot everybody. They win. They win. Sure, the Falcon's able to evade them with some fancy flying. But it's not like he's floating in front of the command module and daring them to fire at him and they miss. It doesn't work like that. We don't see Stormtrooper action now until the end, because, they kidnap Han and Leia and Chewie and everybody pretty handily at dinner without firing a shot. They don't fire shots until the very end, when they're guiding Luke towards the carbon freeze chamber. That's all. Again, it's on purpose. If they kill Luke, Vader will kill them. So they're maneuvering Luke to the final battle. And remember what I said about that story arc, about humanity and life overtaking robotics, that finally comes into play on Endor in Return of the Jedi. The stormtroopers are trained to battle other similar types of soldiers. So when they come up against the Ewoks, they have no defense. That's why the Ewoks win. The Ewoks win because it's an analogy for Vietnam. Don't battle somebody on their own turf. They're going to know it 1,000 times better than you. Now, I can't speak for the prequels. I didn't study them the way I studied the other ones. But there's no stormtroopers in the prequels. Only clone troopers. And it's always stormtroopers that are given this rap that they can't fire. So, if you know a sequence where the stormtroopers are shooting and they can't hit anything, let me know, because I don't remember seeing it in the movie. And that's what I'm talking about, how somebody says something enough times, it just becomes fact. I'll give you another example. Beam me up, Scotty. It's been on t-shirts and bumper stickers. Kirk never says it in the show. He never says those words, beam me up, Scotty. But we would assume that he does. Because there's all this proof, right? Quote unquote proof. The word Ewok is never mentioned in the film, Return of the Jedi. We only know the word Ewok because of merchandise. As you can tell, I'm passionate about Star Wars. Star Wars saved my life when I was a kid. I would escape with my Darth Vader case full of figures into my own world, hours at a time. So watching it become this machine factory, carbon pressing the same thing over and over again, no risk, cardboard storytelling makes me sick. It hurts me. These are my family. These are my friends. You know, I got into a thing on, like, I don't post a lot on social media as far as real opinions. It's why bother? But they posted a report that said people were naming their kids Kylo Ren, and I just wrote, he's no one to look up to. This is the guy who killed his own father. That makes him a villain of the nth degree. And the first comment underneath was, F you, dude, it's just a movie. Oh, okay. I don't know the film, but, you know, John Wayne only died a few times in his career and on screen. And the first time that he died on screen, the actor who killed him got death threats. Because people liked John Wayne. I like Han Solo. I don't celebrate the guy who killed him. I don't think Kylo Ren's a badass. I don't get it. But that's because I'm trying to be invested in the story. You know, the sweeping story that Star Wars has always been. They're not letting me. You know, I've been trying to buy a figure of old Luke since the movie came out, and I can't buy one. But, you know, maybe Last Jedi will prove me wrong. Maybe it'll be fantastic. Mm-hmm. Maybe it'll be the greatest thing ever. Would I love to be proven wrong? Absolutely. Do I think I am? No. These are movies made by committees now. There's no vision. The only vision is, how do we turn it into Harry Potter? How do we have the characters eat things that we can sell in the park? You wait and see. There'll be a sequence in the new movie, either Han Solo or Last Jedi, where they're sitting down to eat and we're describing all the dishes. Oh, this is the bantha steak, seared with you know, whatever, a man greens. I don't know, but that's what they'll do. Because there's got to be a sit-down restaurant in Star Wars land, and the stuff on the menu's got to be something we recognize from the movie, other than blue milk, right? Cynical. I'm cynical. Can't help it. Prove me wrong. I'm a Star Wars fan from way back when. I got 30 or 40 more years on this planet, and I got a lot of disposable income. So I'm the guy you want to appeal to. I'm the guy who's going to buy your breakfast cereal, and your action figures, and your play sets, and your vehicles. But if you don't want to sell that to me, that's fine too. If you don't want to make quality movies that keeps me interested, that's your prerogative. I'll move on to something else. Somebody said, hey, there's a big movie coming out. You excited? Big sequel? I said, absolutely. I can't wait for The Kingsman. Raise a glass. Raise a glass of blue milk to Star Wars. Lifelong friend. Sad to see you go. Sad that it has to end this way. Sad that we have to say goodbye in such a lackluster way. You know, the universe ends not with a bang, but with a whimper. How does what is she saying? Sith? It ends with thunderous applause. It doesn't even end like that now. It ends with a guy posting a meme. Post a meme. Who cares what your opinion is? Just find somebody else's opinion and say that's your own. Ugh, makes me ill. Stand up. Be somebody. Do something important. Take a risk. I'm Jeff Tucker. This is 91 Reasons.
Thanks Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening? Welcome to 91 Reasons, a pop culture fueled rocket into the far reaches of nerd culture. Featuring your hosts, Jeff, Rachel, Luna, Austin, and Josie. It's Tucker time. Thanks for listening. By Gramthar's Hammer. We'll be back with another episode. Live long and prosper. May the force be with you. So say we all. Hey, hey, hey.